Good afternoon, everybody. I'm George Glass, CTO at the TM Forum. And this afternoon, we're going to start to explore autonomous networks and AI in the concept and the context of autonomous networks. So just to get us started, I want to actually ask a question about what is the current state of the industry concerning autonomous networks? And then a secondary question, what are the primary challenges in transitioning away from legacy networks? I want to start with Raj, first of all, please.
Great. Well, first, George, thank you for having me on this panel, and great to be here with you and Hakan. So, almost all of our initiatives, whether it is a new product or a new transformation initiative, begin with a question of automation and intelligent automation and autonomous networks. And this is both for reducing friction for our customers as well as operational efficiency. To kind of first put this in perspective for a tier one operator, autonomous networks or getting to a particular level is not just a destination; it's a journey. And for us, the journey began a dozen years ago with LTE and the SON journey as we were embarking on kind of closed loops. And along the way, there were constant other transformations that occurred. SDN controllers were introduced. We had virtualization. We had disaggregation. We had introduction of cloud stacks. And what that requires is a recalibration and a readjustment of those targets to kind of where we get. So I do want to kind of, the first principle for us is it's a journey, not a destination, because it is going to get reset. The second is to kind of get the adoption internally. It's really important to think of it as safe automation and trusted automation. And to manage a network that you're trying to achieve 5 nines or 4 nines of reliability, the underlying automation has a similar standard. So how do you achieve that? And that's where some of the TM Forum principles on intent are really, really crucial. And the third piece is always entering economics. As a large operator, and many tier one operators have multiple generations of technology. Even just in cloud technology, you may have 3 generations. So the decision on whether you actually invest equally in all the generations or do you go just invest in where the puck's going to be. So those are the kind of the challenges that you have to balance as you work. In terms of where we are on the journey and using the TM Forum ruler, we are solidly north of kind of level 2. We have a lot of closed loops operating at level 3, and kind of level 4 is aspirational, but a lot of investment in the AI enablement there. So.
Excellent, Raj. Moving over to you, Hakan, you're seeing it from a slightly different perspective from Accenture as opposed to from a large operator. Where do you see the industry is in the current state of autonomous networks and then tackling legacy as well?
Sure, George. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation, and Raj, it's a pleasure to be at the stage here. Yeah, I would like to start with another perspective. I think we have the whole industry is working explicitly and implicitly on autonomous networks, and this also thanks to the agenda of the TM Forum, put some boundaries, helping the industry to have something like a leveling you can work against. We see at the moment external factors, challenges. One is the cost pressure, that everyone has to work more efficient, getting costs out or getting the costs down, doing things faster is the agility. That's the next thing on the agenda is doing things maybe in minutes you did before in days, or doing things in seconds, which have been done in hours. And the other thing is the external factor is the monetization. A lot of investments have been done already. Now the target is to monetize investments, and when then the autonomous network agenda is on the track, then you try to radically automate in the network. I would call it radical automation. And the reality is the next challenge is you have the legacy network. It's limited. It means you have fragmented automation. You do in certain areas full automation, in other areas not. You have to maintain both. Then data. Usually you have in a healthy network different data sources. You have maybe 5 or 10 inventory systems, and you are working on having one inventory system. And you have to operate both in parallel. It's not a challenge, it's just the amount of efforts the organization has, and always having in mind the headcount remains the same. That is definitely the second thing. And then the technology. You introduce new technology or new technology stack, and you have the old technology stack. That means limited in the previous one. You enhance the decommissioning. Again, additional efforts. You try to dismantle and decommission faster, and it's definitely resulting in more efforts. I would see and from the leveling perspective, I know you have a nice scoring level. I think Raj, you mentioned level 2. I think when we would ask all the clients of us, which we did for sure as well, then they are really honest. They're saying we're in the beginning, we are fixing the basics, and usually fixing the basics is around 2, I would say. In some of the domains, maybe ahead. But I think I'm also interested in hearing from you later what you found out, George.
Absolutely. So just building on that, I want to start exploring this concept of AN level 4. You'll have heard the term. Let me just explain a little bit about what it is. Whenever we started on this autonomous networks journey 5 years ago, we actually set the levels from level 0, which is a manual network. There's some systems assistance, but it's predominantly a manual network, through to level 5, which is a fully autonomous network. And the fully autonomous network is characterized by what they call the self-X, self-healing, self-serving, self-optimizing from the operator's perspective. And then from the customer's perspective, the 0X, so the zero touch, the zero trouble, the zero wait. And those concepts are achievable within a particular domain at autonomous networks level 4. Autonomous networks level 5 is whenever you do it across all domains of your network, which is a very fine aspiration, but something that's a little further out. And with the work that we've been doing on the TM Forum with our partners and our members, we have set the key effective indicators. So for a particular technology, for a particular use case, this is what it means to be autonomous network level 2 or level 3 or level 4. It's specific, it's measurable, it's unambiguous. And what we've actually seen is if you're going to actually aim for level 4, then you have to be able to measure where you are. And we've developed the autonomous networks level evaluation tool to allow you to measure where you are today, set your aspirations of where you want to be, and then through our information and transformation guides, work through collaboratively how you build out an AN level 4 network. With the initial pilot of the AN level evaluation tool, what we've actually found is that the average is about 2.5, and that's from members who are building autonomous network levels aggressively. And if we look at it in different domains, in the RAN, we were averaging 2.54. In the core network, we were averaging 2.64. But we have to be very careful because the scores, and there is evidence of misalignment between how our members have scored themselves, are indicative at this stage because we're building out the key effective indicators. So if you're moving to AN level 3 or AN level 4 and going to be claiming to be at that, we are suggesting that you need evidence to back it up based on the key effective indicators and based on something that is unambiguous in the marketplace. So that's what we've got around autonomous network level 4, the term whenever you hear it. And I'm interested in actually seeing what are the key factors in actually achieving level 4 autonomy in the networks, and what are the foundational pillars that you would need to achieve AN level 4? Either.
Okay, I can go first. I'll kind of maybe first. I think Georgia said the foundations of the autonomous network toolkit you have on kind of the business aspects, the technical, and the intent are critical. So I think it's a good way to have a 360-degree view and kind of both a bottom-up and a top-down view. So to define kind of the level 4, a couple of key attributes to that is decision-making and predictive capabilities. And I want to probably give an illustrative example on how we think about going from level 3 to level 4. So if we take an example of a journey in just even SON applications, where we were doing configuration management in our radio access network, we had capabilities to audit and then take corrective actions based on correlations with KPIs and machine learning models, and we had complete closed loops to correct that. When we go to a level 4, and while we had a pretty robust closed loop capability, a lot of that was statically derived. So it is a priori analytics that derive those closed loops. As we think about the same automation moving to level 4, that needs a different order of decision-making and predictive work beyond the static capabilities. And we're able to do analysis using AI models that now take not just traffic parameters and KPIs, but also geospatial data and comparative capabilities and pattern matching, and drive predictive ones where you can look at patterns of a particular cell site and say, oh, this is in the 25th percentile of all cell sites that have similar geospatial characteristics and traffic characteristics, and to optimize it for those handover parameters or other capabilities. Here are some other recommendations and decision-making that you can apply. So that's the step function you get from kind of going to from level 3 to level 4 that we're going down. So what are the foundations that you need for that capability? So certainly you need well-exposed data pipelines. So those are your Kafka pipelines and your subpub model with SLAs to have guarantees on that data showing up in a timely basis. You need very mature data marketplaces and certainly workflow engines. That's going to be physical infrastructure, but you also need some logical artifacts. You need good ontologies, good correlation capabilities. You need to have a digital twin framework where you can do some of those parametric modeling or event-driven simulation to build that confidence for safe automation. And finally, I think adjacent are those network foundation models or LLMs and agentic RAG models to support those pattern matching and synthetic data generation.
What to do to become level 4? First of all, I like the scoring mechanism you developed. One of my personal aspiration was for 20 years benchmarking, and therefore I like the score. What to do? I would like to start with the moment where we signed the manifesto on the autonomous networks. I went back to our people and told them, we have 8 GNOCs. We are operating networks. Now we have to do it according to the autonomous network framework. And then for sure, the first discussion point was why, how to do the transformation means. The first thing I would say is not convincing, but getting all hands on deck. The people you have working on these topics have to work together with you on becoming level 4. Yeah. It will remain people business. And then also the skills. You have to tell to the people what is the service manager will become a prompt engineer. How to get from a service manager to a prompt engineer. I think this exercise I think in your case, maybe for 20,000 people or 50,000 people or 100,000 people, yeah. That's definitely something we should start as soon as possible. The second thing is technology, the technology stack. Usually you could work talk for hours about the technology stack, but I think it's fundamental to start with something called disaggregation. You need to decouple software from hardware. You have to bring everything to the cloud, the workloads, because then you're more flexible. And then the third step is programmability, that you can, let's say, do easier decision-making, how to manage the network. You have 3 vendors, manage it through one layer, not 3 software instances. When you have simplified that, maybe the next thing could be a data. Simplifying, having everything at one place, having the data structure everyone needs. When you have technical and business processes, it would be really nice to have all the data at one place. And then AI. Before you do AI, you need radical automation. Then AI is more effective. And then when it comes to AI, there are different ways to apply AI. You can pilot and test AI. You can measure the performance, even with your nice framework you have launched recently. You will be able to say this AI is not good enough. We have to replace the AI. And for sure, what you need when I look to maybe AT&T or to others, you need the right partners. You can reinvent the wheel, or you take what is in the market, you select the right ecosystem partners. Also here, I think recently we have seen many partners are popping up to help the industry. I think to have the right partnerships, like the one also with the TM Forum.
Excellent. So one of the things we're seeing is this concept of moving to AI in level 4 requires AI before you can actually get there. You can't just automate today's processes. So I'm really interested in exploring a little more about the various journeys in the context of autonomous networks that are actually underway, because our networks in every operator are vast. There's multiple technologies, there's multiple versions of technology. And from my observations in talking with the operators and the vendors that support them, they're not trying to make their entire network AI in level 4 in one go. They're taking it off piece by piece, journey by journey. Can you comment, Raj, on the sort of approach that you're seeing or have underway in the context of the transformations to achieve autonomous networks?
So as you can imagine, across the industry and certainly at AT&T, there's multiple transformations underway. Sometimes we have them occurring at the same time, and sometimes they kind of overlap in intervals and occurring in different parts of the business, whether it's on the OSS, BSS side, or the actual core network or the edge network. Just a journey over the last decade, disaggregating the network, virtualizing it, bringing SDN controllers. Each of those was a transformative aspect to all aspects, from our ability on how we delivered services and products, but also operationally. In fact, it put quite a bit of challenge operationally, because you had to manage the legacy network and then the future state, and you were for time kind of straddling both those automation engines. From a autonomous network journey, again, I'll maybe use an example to kind of illustrate the kind of approaches we've got to take. And I'll use an example of kind of energy efficiency, which is a aspect that is really, really important to operators. We spend a lot of money powering the infrastructure, and especially the edge of the network in the RAN. The approach for kind of closed loops there were a lot of controls and capabilities that our RAN supply chain exposed to us. And this was the days of the monolithic baseband units and that we managed. And it took many steps of trying to optimize that energy efficiency by balancing performance and the sleep states that you would go work that. And again, bring in the practices of safe automation and ensuring that there was a light degree of control on how you did that. But most of those models were, again, a priori deterministic based on what you had learned on certain behavior. As we went to kind of disaggregated networks, taking advantage of now virtualizing the radio access network, putting it on commodity hardware, besides now that your controls are more distributed, you also now have new controls available at the compute level and at the operating system level. So in addition to what you had at the workload level that was exposed by the RAN vendors, now you have opportunities at the compute level and operating system level, different controls. Now you've got to work those in parallel because some of those performance states and sleep states, the PNC states in some of the compute hardware, is a relationship with a workload type. So if you're using a particular type of performance optimized DPDK library, you can take advantage of some state or not. So you've had an order of magnitude in complexity increase as you try to go work these the modeling to ensure the right balance in performance and energy efficiency. So just as you take a network transformation step of disaggregation and driving to virtualization, it can impact something as native as energy efficiency. So it's part of the complexity and adaptation that is required on this journey.
Excellent. Now we'll go back to the whole concept of the softwareization of the network and access to the network resources a little later, but I'm just interested in Hakon's perspective on that whole concept of what are the journeys that you're seeing?
Similar to what Raj said, we see here that energy saving is definitely one area where the whole industry is working on. What we see here recently is initially the industry was switching off resources overnight, but now the concept is evolving that also during the daytime, the energy consumption will be regulated or is moving to being dynamic. That the new concept is when the basics are fixed, and usually you can also do it during the daytime, making the network resources available when they are needed is maybe a planning guideline, as an example. The second area is network operation. This is a huge area, especially level 1 and level 2. Here, bringing more efficiency in through innovation, technology, modern workflows, but also at the right automation level. Another area is a network, I would call it engineering/optimization. You have a lot of issues in the field you can detect and automatically solve. Now, I think here we have seen recently nice developments. One thing is nice interference, washing off interference in the network. Spectrum is very valuable, and when you have routines in place where you can automatically identify there's interference, you wash it off because you change 4 or 5 parameters, and you continue because interference is moving. You do it continuously, and then you have more spectrum available. And then you can move it even to the network operation because it's a standard process. I think we see some nice developments, and maybe the very final one is deployment. A lot of costs are related to deployment and using automation AI in the design, in the deployment, but also detecting issues in the field because the photo you're taking is checked by a routine, an AI routine, and identifying issues. These kind of use cases we have seen recently, and even at scale in the field.
Excellent. Raj, I want to just develop that thought from Hakon earlier on, where we were talking about energy savings, and we talked about sometimes we're switching networks off overnight, and now even during the day, if the load on a particular base station goes down, you can turn the power down, but then turn it back up again as demand comes through. That starts to open the debate around autonomous control, and you do that either localized or centralized.
Yep.
Can you just expand a little on the pros and cons of each and the problems associated with like centralized control versus?
Absolutely, and that's a really, really important area, especially for us from a operational control. And we're kind of calling those daytime energy efficiency steps kind of those nap times, and we may take some carriers down and keep others up, depending on what we see the traffic pattern to be. So the challenge is when we start kind of building centralized control, command and control, that has to be as reliable or more reliable than your network to ensure that it is always available for access. And we know that you can have, for whatever reason, some downtime or some maintenance activity in some centralized environments where you may not be able to go make those dynamic changes back up, particularly when you do the cell locking, unlocking, which is typically the commands and controls you use to make these intrusive changes. So the risk there is if you have centralized control exclusively and you lose connectivity for whatever reason, you have some control path issue, you may end up impairing performance at that local level. So we're trying to balance, and that's just one example, but where you have some localized control that takes a priority over the centralized control under different circumstances. So you have a way to balance both the local intelligence and centralized intelligence. So it's a key part of the automation journey, and it's part of our principles on that intent-based networking of driving a safe and trusted automation.
Super. Love to hear that. And just, Hakan, what's the timeline for getting to AN level 4? I'm seeing statements from operators, even in their reports to the city, that they're going to be there in 2025 or 2026. But what do you see working with your clients in terms of the timeline to getting to AN level 4?
Dangerous question. We see a lot of ambition. The ambition is there to get to level 3 or 4 at a certain time. We see, or we have seen 6 months ago, a lot of level 3 ambition until end of 2027. This was, for example, one of the initial objectives we have recognized recently, not only because you launched the level 4 aspiration, we have also seen that clients of us said, okay, let's take level 3 until 2026, because level 4, it looks like we can catch up with level 4. And the business demand is there, the pressure is there. Realistically, my impression is when we continue with this speed, and also seeing like an operator like AT&T, it's a massive geography and a lot of network elements. When we look to maybe a country like Germany, is just a subset of that. When we look to Switzerland, when we look to Australia, and all of them across, I would say it will take 5 years that we can say it's really substantial change in the thought process of the people, the recruitment process, all the technical and business processes are in tasks measured by your famous benchmarking framework, and that the people, and you should know that the leaders, they have 2 or 3 years usually time to, and after 2 or 3 years, usually there are changes in the organization. My impression is around, I think 5 years is something that we have a broader coverage with level 4. We will see some of the operators maybe at the Mobile World Congress maybe will then announce then level 4 maybe earlier, like end of 2027. But looking forward to help and look into that.
And Raj, level 4 in AT&T, imminent?
Again, I'll kind of maybe echo back, like, I don't look at it as a kind of a peak you scale, because if you pause there, you're already behind. So I think it's for us is kind of still in that path of building the components around, but it's definitely in sight of a lot of our activity. Whether we can get it on a weighted index for all of our tasks, that's still aspirational. But there are key initiatives where we see in subdomains where we will advance to that probably the next couple of years.
Excellent. Just to share with you some of our recent work that we've actually seen, our members are actually identifying high-value use cases where the return on investment from the operator's perspective is very high, where the technology we believe is actually available to achieve AN level 4 for that process or for that user journey, and they're prioritizing those aspects of their network transformation to achieve AN level 4. And that seems a very practical way to do that. And what we're trying to do then as an industry association is to work with those members collaboratively, capture the best practice, the implementation guides, how they actually did it, and then share that back with the industry, because we want the whole industry at AN level 4. We want the whole industry to have the agility and the flexibility to launch and create new products at scale. As we move to AN level 4, I have stated very publicly that to get to the level of automation that we require for AN level 4 requires standardization. And by that, I actually mean the management and operate interfaces into the network resources need to be industry standard. They cannot be vendor specific, because that adds a complexity and a delay to the management of those resources. Just interested to see your perspective on that and how your architecture for autonomous networks, particularly around the fact that the network resources themselves are becoming software and therefore managed through a standard set of APIs, is something that's practical and realizable that wasn't possible 3 or 4 years ago. I'd love your take on that, Raj.
So it's that's a great question, and it's something that for us we are leaning into ORAN. We have been posturing there for many years. I think we are at that point now where we believe with non-real-time RIC and the RAP ecosystem, the standardization there will really open up a lot of third-party and industry-wide RAP development that we could be opportunistic around. Also in general, for our 5G SA core, taking advantage of some of the 3GPP standards on the NEF APIs. Again, building closed loop capability, which with something that we are doing right now, is again a piece that standardization is really important. And finally, for a lot of the monetization areas, and Hakan talked about it, where we're looking at network APIs and driving that into the automation. We are leaning into Kamara and TM Forum significantly. It's something that is really, really helpful. I'll just make a comment about, while we look within our own industry and, we have our own echo chambers here, we also kind of try to look outside of our vertical, because there's a lot of innovation and thought leadership. We are seeing practices there that I think we can adapt and improve on. We saw some capability in the gaming industry around ray tracing, as an example, and rendering, very precise information in a rapid way, and adopting that for propagation modeling and for geospatial. In fact, we are applying that into our remote electrical tilt management approaches for SON applications and future RAPs. So we see opportunities across an adjacent verticals where we can get inspired and adopt.
Hakan, what are you seeing globally across our industry with standardization of interfaces into network resources to achieve automation?
Yeah. think without any exception, all of them are working on standards. You can clearly see, I think ONAP you mentioned already, Kamara, take ONAP. With ONAP, just imagine you can do SRAN configuration, you can do ORAN configuration, you can do RIG, you can do so many things just with one standard. You can manage the Ericsson node without the Ericsson software. You can do it with the standard software. You can manage the Juniper router, the Cisco router, and also the Nokia node with the same software. I think this will definitely help to simplify and help also in the autonomous network journey. And I was active in some other bodies than the TM Forum, like NGMN, ETSI, GSMA, and the TIP Academy, and everyone is asking for standardization. And it's happening. What is for sure needed is that the OEMs are open their interfaces that we can plug in. And I think here we're also on a good track, and the companies like AT&T also helping with the power you have that convincing the parties to follow that track.
So just picking up on that, obviously there's the other SDOs, ETSI, ORAN, 3GPP. We're working collaboratively with all of those in our autonomous networks. We have a multi-SDO track just to make sure that we aren't stepping on each other's toes and working. We're not competing with them in any way. We want to complement what they do. But I'm also thinking about what other strategic partnerships are essential for AT&T or for Accenture to actually develop and actually build out and accelerate the progress to network automation.
So I'll kind of maybe start local. So within AT&T, I'll tell you what's strategic for me. I'm in the network CTO organization, so kind of on the network side of the house. A strategic partnership internally for me is with our Chief Data Office. And I got to give a big shout out to them because that organization builds some of the key infrastructure on the AI aspects of a data marketplace. Some of the standardization they've done or adopted from Linux Foundation, Apache, on the Iceberg format for high performance data table access unleashes a lot of capabilities for us. So that was or is a strategic partnership internally that we rely on and take advantage of. At the industry level, I would say we certainly encourage our supply chain and a lot of our vendor ecosystem. Also through the participation in ORAN and ONAP ones, particularly ORAN right now as we are unlocking a lot of that RAP ecosystem, but that's a key key places for partnership with that supply chain.
Excellent. Hakan?
Partnerships starting with trainings. I think the partnerships in the training area are, I think, mandatory. Hyperscalers, I think that group is becoming more and more important. Really from the innovation perspective, but also regarding the workloads. And there are companies we are at the moment working with. You have to partner with like NVIDIA, ServiceNow to mention, but also Nokia, Ericsson. Usually everyone is contributing in the industry. Just mentioned a few of them. Yep. Personally interested in the Gen AI track also from NVIDIA in the next 12 to 24 months.
Excellent. We're almost out of time. I'm going to hit you with one last question. Who is leading the way in advancing autonomous networks?
Well, first I'll say no one has a monopoly in good ideas. And I think, I would just say that, I think we get inspired from a lot of the capabilities and actually the feedback loop that TM Forum enables. But I wouldn't, like I said earlier, I wouldn't limit it to just our industry and our echo chamber. I think there's a lot of opportunity across many verticals to get take ideas from and bring it in here. So,
Hakan?
Second dangerous question. But I would see here, for example, the financial industry we can learn from. You know, they are doing this, I think, for a decade already. What we see is we have operators going into the field. It will take a while, like maybe in the Eastern Hemisphere, and then you have in Europe or North America, you have very specific use cases going at scale. I think both aspects have this charm, and looking forward to see the developments.
great.
Excellent. Raj and Hakan, thank you very much for your insights into autonomous networks and the evolution of this very exciting technology for our industry. Please put your hands together, Raj and Hakan. Thank you.